Hello and welcome to class number 5 of this quick revision series of UPSC Prelims 2024. I love how a lot of you have been enjoying this series and revising quickly before your prelims exam comes in. Just one issue that I have, a lot of you who have been watching have still not hit the subscribe button, so please do that as well. In today's class, we will again be discussing topics from Indian Polity. Today will be the end of Indian Polity. From tomorrow, we will be beginning with international relations and then we'll go to economics, so on and so forth. We'll be covering all the important news from the last 365 days. Also reminding you, if you would like to have the PDF of these lectures that I conduct here, all that you need to do is become a part of Telegram channel. The link of Telegram channel I have given in the description of the video. You can join there as well. Let's see what are the topics that we will start. Now, the first topic is topic number 51. 50 topics I've already discussed in the first 4 classes. In case you missed any of the earlier classes, the link of the entire playlist is in the description of the video. Please go through them as well. Topic number 51 is Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council. As you know, Ladakh has been a lot in the news in the past few months. There have been demands from Ladakh that they would like to have their own separate status of being in the 6th schedule. They would like to have some other special provisions, especially for them, giving much more power and control to the local administration to preserve their own culture. They claim that they have their own tribal community that is in majority, and they also deserve certain special provisions. Although the government has not accepted that, but there is still an existing council in Ladakh that was in the news that is called the Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council. Now, even before Ladakh and Jammu and Kashmir became a union territory, there was an existence of this council for both Ladakh and also separately for Kargil as well. So there is this council which exists in Leh starting from 1995. In Kargil it was formed in 2003. What do? They are mostly a kind of an organization that gives policy related inputs for the local government to implement. So they work closely with the village panchayats. They take decisions on the local healthcare, land related, education related issues of the people, and then they would try and see if these can be implemented in the long run. That is what they do. So they do have a kind of a local government structure even right now. These hill councils, both for Leh and for Kargil, they have 30 councillors each. Now again, as you know, the word councillor we usually use for municipalities. So they work similar to municipalities only. There are 30 councillors each. 26 are elected while 4 will be nominated. Amongst the members, there will have to be a chairperson as well, who will also serve as a chief executive councillor. This chief executive councillor or the chairman, equivalent to the mayor in other cases, will have the power of a cabinet minister within that particular area. This council consists of 4 executive councillors as well, who will be given the rank equal to that of deputy minister. Now again, they do not have any binding powers, but they do have the powers to plan and to tell the government these are the kind of initiatives we would want for our area. Also, they would help the district administration in executing the work and maintaining law and order in the long run. These are their powers. Again, if you look, the powers are not really binding as such, they are more in the sphere of advising. So their power includes development of planning, then budget for the district, implementing health related schemes, promoting their own language, culture, tourism. This is what they do. If empowered, they can also collect taxes and fees within their jurisdiction from small things, for example, let's say parking. When the tourists, for example, go to Ladakh area, the vehicles that they park, the entry fee that you have to pay to get to certain places, those are some examples of the fees and taxes that they can actually use, collect and also use for their own purposes. Next article or next topic rather that was in the news was the Shrea Scheme. Now, Shrea Scheme is specifically a scheme that the government of India launched to give a push to the backward class students. Many of them drop out because of various reasons. So government launched this Shrea Scheme. The idea is to give appropriate support to students belonging to the OBC, that is the other backward classes community, and also EBC. EBC stands for economically backward classes. So basically there are different programs which are already running. The government made an umbrella scheme kind of Shreyas to include all of them under this, and I'll give you example of what they have included. So basically two big programs: one, National Fellowship for OBC students, and second, Dr. Ambedkar Central Sector Scheme for Interest Subsidy for Education Loan for Overseas Studies. These two were already existing schemes, under which, number one, some students were chosen for national fellowship, so they were given some stipend, and number two, students who wanted to go and study abroad, they were also given education loan at a lower rate of interest. Those two have been combined and they have now been included under this Shrea scheme specifically. So the Shrea scheme, as I said, first component, financial assistance to OBC students through 1000 junior research fellowships. It will be implemented by Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. On the other hand, the second component is for those students from this community who want to go abroad outside India to study. They will be covered under Dr. Ambedkar scheme of interest subsidy for education loan. Again, it is interest subsidy. So it's not that they don't really have to pay back. They have to pay back the money, but a part of the interest will be cut off and the government will handle a part of the interest. It's also a form of interest subvention. Do remember, under this part, this scheme of giving education loan at a lower rate of interest is being implemented by Canara Bank, and it is only up to rupees 20 lakhs. Now this is slightly problematic because most of the courses when you go and study abroad cost much more than 20 lakh rupees, but at least it's a good beginning. 20 lakh is the maximum limit and Canara Bank is the implementing agency of this particular scheme. Shreyas here stands for Scholarships for Higher Education for Young Achievers scheme. Next is another interesting news that was in a lot of headlines some months back, something called the SSA Code. Now what exactly is SSA? A lot of tribal communities in different parts of India, for example states such as Jharkhand, Odisha, etc., they have their own unique religions. Most of the religions involve worshipping forests, worshipping trees. They don't really worship any idol. The problem is when the government conducts its census and when they go to the tribal community and they ask them which religion do you follow, and they say I follow the Sarna religion, that religion is not recognized by the government. So what happens is most of these tribal communities are then put under Hindu religion, although the religion that they follow is not really Hinduism. But because the government does not recognize the religion as such, most of them are then counted under Hinduism. So what has happened is there is a demand for a long time that if we really want to have an exact compilation of data of different religions that exist in India, of the people who follow different religions, we need to recognize these religions as well. And Jharkhand Chief Minister had asked the Prime Minister to recognize the Sarna religious code for tribal. So Sarna is a religion that the tribal community basically follows. They said that when the next census, wherever it is conducted, which was supposed to be in 2021, whenever the next census is conducted, the demand is that the census should recognize a category of Sarna religion and should not force a tribal community to categorize or to identify themselves as someone from other religion, let's say Hindu religion, because they don't want to. Now, Sarna faith, usually the followers are tribals. They follow nature, or they rather worship nature. They mainly live by the motto of Jal, Jungle and Zameen, which stands for water, forest and land. They also do not believe in idol worship. They do not adhere to any concept of the Varna system, heaven, hell, etc. They are mainly concentrated in the tribal community areas of India, Jharkhand, Odisha, a bit of Bengal, Bihar and Assam as well. Now there is no official data about how many people would follow this faith. Census have not recognized it. But as per multiple estimates from different types of surveys conducted, there would be about 50 lakh tribal people who might follow the Sarna religion. Now, this is interesting. In India's case, 50 lakh does not seem a very big number. But do you know there are so many countries in Europe which don't even have an entire population of 50 lakh. So 50 lakh, if this is the amount of population that follows a specific religion, they do deserve to be categorized under that particular religion, because again it's not a small bunch of population as such, but no decision has been taken on this as such right now. Next thing in the news was a concept of curative petition. Now, to be true, curative petition remains in the news almost every single year. This is something that the Supreme Court allows in certain cases. Whenever they do, it comes in the news once again. So the idea is simple. Let's assume Supreme Court has given a decision which you do not like. Now, what option do you have? Let's forget about going to President for mercy petition. In the Supreme Court, what option do you have? So the option that you have is, once the Supreme Court decides, gives the decision, and you're not happy with it, you can file something called a review petition. Basically, review petition would be you are requesting the Supreme Court to review the judgment because you think that something wrong has happened. Even after that, if you think some new fact has come up, if you think that the Supreme Court was unreasonable in the decision making, then you can file for a curative petition. So curative petition comes after the review petition. It is usually only applicable or accepted by the Supreme Court if a significant new fact has come up which might impact the decision that was already taken by the Supreme Court. Now, you don't have to remember in which case was it in the news this year. Just understand the concept of curative petition. This is the final remedy at the Supreme Court after review petitions have been dismissed. It usually is allowed to ensure that principles of natural justice are upheld, that no one thinks that, oh, I am not being taken care of or I am not being heard, the court is not hearing me. If the Supreme Court thinks that it does not warrant or it is not really eligible to be heard again, they can dismiss it. In fact, the number of dismissals by the Supreme Court are more as compared to number of acceptance. Another interesting point is, in order to be accepted, it has to be certified by a senior advocate. Now, how does one become a senior advocate? There is no qualification as such. Senior advocate is a title given by the Supreme Court itself. So if the Supreme Court recognizes some advocates as being senior, who are learned, they will call them as senior advocates. So there is no qualification as such. There is no exam as such to prove that. Senior advocates have to be given this kind of a title by the Supreme Court itself. This curative petition finds its basis in Article 137 and 142. What does Article 137 say? Article 137 says that the Supreme Court has the power to review its own judgment. So if the Supreme Court has given a judgment, they can backtrack it, they can review it if they think that something wrong has happened. Article 142, as you know, gives unlimited power to the Supreme Court, almost unlimited, to deliver any judgment that brings complete justice in the society. So in the name of complete justice, they can bring out any new rule, they can hear any matter. These are the two articles on the basis of which the Supreme Court usually hears this matter. Curative petition as a concept started in 2002 in the famous Rupa Ashok Hora versus the Ashok Hora case. Do remember this fact. Next important news from last year is that 2023 marked 75 years of NCC, that is the National Cadet Corps. Most of you would have seen the NCC. There are students, you would see them in a uniform similar to the army but not exactly the same. Some of you in school or colleges may have also taken part in the NCC. So NCC basically is a kind of voluntary organization that you can join. They will give you training similar to that of armed forces. The idea is to bring in discipline in the youth in day-to-day life and also try and encourage the youth to go ahead and then join the armed forces. So if you are already in the NCC and you go and apply to join Army, Navy or Air Force, and you are given preference as compared to the other candidates. So for someone who is looking to go into armed forces, joining the NCC is a very, very good beginning at least. Now, NCC is not specific to one armed force. It serves all. Army, Navy, Air Force. It just tries to groom the youth as much as possible. The aim is to develop character, leadership, discipline, etc. in the youth of the country. Again, the important part is it is now 75 years old. It is divided into 17 directorates which are responsible for specific states or a group of states in certain cases. It's a voluntary organization. No one can be forced to be a part of it. They are given basic military training with small arms and parades. In fact, usually in the Republic Day parade, you will see NCC cadets also taking out that march, which is a very proud moment for them. NCC is headed by the Director General, who is an army officer of the rank of the Lieutenant General. So this is again an important part that you must remember. Next important topic. There were two bills related to Jammu and Kashmir that received the President of India's assent. Now, what were these bills? Basically, ever since Jammu and Kashmir was converted into a union territory, as you know, elections have not been held. So what the government did, Government of India created the Delimitation Commission to suggest any change in the number of seats, reservation, etc. They gave some suggestions, and on the basis of that, the changes were made. So for that, basically two bills were passed. These two bills mainly talk about the changes in the composition of Jammu and Kashmir Assembly, number of seats, reservation, who will the reservation be for. These bills were given the assent. So what has happened is, in 2019, the number of seats for Jammu and Kashmir Assembly that were given, 2019 means when the reorganization of Jammu and Kashmir happened, they were given 107 seats. But that has now been increased to 114 seats in total. First. Second, reservation for scheduled caste will be of 7 seats, and for scheduled tribe there will be 9 seats reserved. Earlier there was no reservation for scheduled tribes. As you know, 24 seats in the assembly remain vacant because they are considered as the seats from the Pakistan occupied Kashmir area, which India maintains it is still officially our area, but we keep those seats vacant as such. Meaning that if you basically remove 24 seats where elections will not be held, so out of 114, 24 will remain vacant. So it is 90 seats on which the elections will be held. That is how the new bills are. Also, the new bills have a provision for nomination of Kashmiri migrants. The Lieutenant Governor of Jammu and Kashmir can nominate up to 2 members, out of which one has to be a woman who are from the Kashmiri migrant community. Now there is also a definition given of who will be these migrants. They are those people who migrated from Kashmir Valley or other part of the state of Jammu and Kashmir after 1st November 1989 and registered with the Relief Commissioner. Now please understand, when you look at the history of Jammu and Kashmir, you look at the issues or troubles of terrorism, etc. It is widely believed that the issue of terrorism and insurgency became prominent only after 1989. Even before that, there may have been some issue, but the large-scale deployment of the armed forces, the issue of insurgency, the issue of people coming in from the other side illegally, that mainly erupted after 1989. So that is why it is the cutoff date. Also, the Act says Lieutenant Governor can nominate up to 1 representative from the displaced person community. Who are these people? They are those individuals who left or were displaced from their place of residence in the POK and they continue to reside outside at such place. So people who, for example, were in POK earlier, Pakistan occupied Kashmir, they came to our side or they came to Indian side. From them also 1 person can be nominated. So again, nomination would be 2 people from Kashmiri migrant community. Out of these 2, 1 has to be a woman and 1 person from the displaced community. They can be nominated by the Lieutenant Governor. As the topic said, there were 2 bills passed. First was this one and the second bill is this. The second bill that was given assent by the President grants reservation in jobs and professional institutions to scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and other socially and educationally backward classes. These are the 2 bills that have been passed or that have rather been given the President's assent. The Supreme Court, as you know, also a few months back had told the government that you must have elections in Jammu and Kashmir as soon as possible. End of September was a kind of deadline that was provided. So we might see election in Jammu and Kashmir Assembly very soon, mostly after Lok Sabha elections are over. Another topic in the news was the Bilkis Bano case. We will not go into the exact case of Bilkis Bano, that is not really relevant for examination point of view. We will rather focus on the idea of remission because that was in the news. So, convicts in the Bilkis Bano case, the 11 convicts who were convicted of this crime, means it was proven that they did commit the crime. They were let go by the Gujarat government, means they were given remission. So the idea is, how does this remission work? Because in Indian polity, you all have read that remission is a power of the president or the governor. So how is the government involved here? Why is it that the remission thing did not come from president, did not come from governor? So this is where you have to understand the Constitution of India gives the power of remission to president and the governor. That is on one hand. But on the other hand, there is a law as well in the Criminal Procedure Code of 1973. Now, as you know, Criminal Procedure Code is no more, it has been replaced now. But when it did exist, it talked about Section 432, in which the appropriate government could remit a person without any condition as well. Means, if the government was convinced that the person in prison was behaving properly, they could allow the person to come out. That was a power given to the appropriate government. Now, appropriate government means what? In this case, appropriate government would be government against which the case was fought. So if, for example, you broke the central government law, and that is when you were in jail, so central government will give the order. If you broke the state government law and state government law put you in the jail, then it will be the state government. Also, Section 433A of the CRPC said that if someone was given a life imprisonment by the court, they had to serve at least 14 years before being let out on any condition. You don't have to remember these section numbers now. The reason being that CRPC has anyways been removed. So I would not advise you to remember, but I would just make you understand, the idea is to make you understand remission is not just the power of the president or the governor. We read about it, that is in the Constitution, but apart from that also, the governments also have the power for remission in certain cases, and usually these are the powers that we usually see. And this is not very rare. Governments usually do bring out prisoners, or government let the prisoners go on big occasions. For example, last year, the government, as part of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, had actually announced release of prisoners on 3 national holidays. There were some prisoners that were released on 15th of August, then on 26th Jan, and then on 15th of August 2023 as well. Who were these prisoners who were let go? Those who fulfilled these conditions: women transgender above 50 years of age who have completed 50% of the total sentence, male convicts of 60 years or above, and physically challenged or disabled convicts with 70% or more disability having completed 50% of their entire sentence. In the second category also, 50% sentence had to be completed. So there were a lot of prisoners that were let go, and the government let go of these prisoners, the Bilkis Bano case, as a part of this initiative only. Also, not everyone was let go. There were obviously some exceptions. Exemptions, for example, were anyone who is on death sentence will not be let go of. Anyone who is in, let's say, jail for dowry, death, rape case, human trafficking, they also would not be let go. So there was some exemption. This is not happening for the first time. Governments do this by releasing the prisoners, and there are various reasons why the government does this. One reason is the prisons in India are overflowing. Most of the prisons are operating at over 100% capacity. That has led to violent disruptions within the prison. You see what's happening in Tihar. And the other reason also is that jails are considered as a place for reformation, not for retribution. So if you think that the prisoner has learned the lesson and he or she would be able to join back the society, that is when you decide to leave the prisoner and let the prisoner go. Next news, Supreme Court Legal Services Committee, that is formed under NALSA, had its new chairman, Justice Gavai, a Supreme Court judge. You all would have read about the NALSA law of 1987, under which the provision is that free legal aid is provided to those who are in need at various levels of the judiciary. At the Supreme Court level, the responsibility to provide free legal aid is with this committee called Supreme Court Legal Services Committee, and its chairman has been nominated. This committee is formed under Section 3A of the NALSA Act to provide free legal aid to the weaker sections of the society. It consists of a chairperson and 9 members nominated by the Chief Justice of India, while the appointment of other officers and employees who work here is done by the central government, but only in consultation with the Chief Justice of India. As you know, under the Nalsa law of 1987, such committees are formed not just at the Supreme Court level, but also at the state level, that is at the High Court level, district level and taluka level as well. So Nalsa talks about having free legal aid at the state level, which is ensured by the State Legal Services Authority. State Legal Services Authority is headed by the Chief Justice of the High Court, and a serving or a retired High Court judge is nominated as an executive chairman. Similarly, at the district level, we have the District Service Authority. This is headed usually by the district judge, who is the ex-officio chairman. Below that, we have the taluk level, where a civil judge, a senior civil judge usually is given in charge or is being put in charge of such committees. Now, who are the people who are eligible to get free legal aid? These are the people who are eligible to get free legal aid. If you are following my answer writing initiative, which I run on this YouTube channel, you will see just a couple of days back we solved a question exactly about this. In 2023 mains exam GS2, there was a question exactly this only, that who are the people who are eligible to get free legal aid under NALSA. These are the people who are eligible to get free legal aid under NALSA. Next interesting topic is a phrase that you should know, something called easementary rights. Now, let me explain this to you in simple terms. What do you mean by easementary rights? Okay. Let us assume I own this property. I own this plot number A. Okay. This is my plot. I own this. Now, and let's say this is the main road. Now, from the main road, in order to come to my plot, the only way is that I can, this is plot number B. The only way that I can reach my home is to go through B. This is the only path. Then as the owner of plot A, I should be given the right by plot owner B to use their plot to come to my property. I'll explain this again. If I have a property and the way to reach my property or the path to reach my property goes through some other person's property, then that person should allow me this right to use that path to reach my property. This is called easementary right. I have the right, B cannot deny me the right. That is the entire idea. This is called easementary right. Supreme Court here just a few weeks ago said that if, let's say I own plot number A, if I have some alternate way to reach my plot, then I cannot force Mr. B to give me a right to walk through his plot. Means if there is a possibility for me to reach from here, then I do not have the right to go from here. This is what the Supreme Court says. Easement is not available or necessarily not available when there is an alternative way to access the property. So this is easementary right. Again, easementary right is my right to go to someone else's property to reach my property if that is the only way to reach. But if I do have an alternate way to reach, then it is not necessary on B to allow this to me. This is a statutory rule. It's not something that is just in practice. It's a rule that is recognized by Indian Easement Act of 1882. Whatever I explained to you, that is good enough. You don't need to remember all of this. This is just written in very verbose language, the exact thing that I gave you by example. To reach your plot, if you have to go through someone else's plot, you would have the right to cross that. That is called easementary right, as simple as that. The parties that are involved in this case, owner of the land, from where you would have to go, owner of the land where you will have to reach, so on and so forth. But don't go into detail of this. Just understand this with the help of example that I gave you. Next news, it is election season. So EVMs, VVPAT will always be in the news. VVPAT, as you know, voter verifiable paper audit trail. It's a small printer kind of a machine attached with the EVM, where when you press the button of the EVM, there's a small slip that comes out of the VVPAT. You can check the slip just to make sure the button that you pressed, the slip would have the party symbol to make sure that your vote went to the right candidate. Because there were a lot of allegations that I pressed some other button, the vote went to somewhere else, etc. Now, EVMs, in order to increase people's confidence on the EVMs, having VVPAT attached with them is necessary. but you cannot count all the VVPAT slips, because if you keep counting every slip of the VVPAT, then you are going back to the era of paper ballot election. It will take a long time. There was a petition filed in the Supreme Court, in fact, saying that every printout, every slip of VVPAT should be counted and verified with the number of votes of EVM. But Supreme Court said that that is just not possible. How VVPAT usually works is, again, so if you have given a vote, you would know if this is a EVM. Along with this, it's a small printer machine. So let's say you press the button. In this machine, a small slip, like kind of a slip that comes out when you use your credit card, that kind of a slip basically will come out. That slip will have candidate serial number, name of the candidate that you voted for, and the symbol. So for example, you voted for the BJP candidate and the name of the candidate is, let's say, Harshmeet Singh. So when you press the button, the slip will come out. You can check on the slip whether it is a right person or that person only and that party only to whom you voted. You cannot take the slip home. It is behind a glass cover. You can see the slip for about 7 seconds. Then it will cut automatically. It will drop into the box. So the idea is, randomly, if the Election Commission wants, randomly they can basically check some EVMs along with their VVPAT just to count that the number of votes are the same in both or not. But in the entire country, if you keep on counting every VVPAT, every slip, then there is no point of using the EVMs. So EVM, that is why, basically are used to ensure that elections are happening in the right manner. The Election Commission of India has the authority to request whether VVPAT slips will be counted or not. If you have, let's say, you have some proof that something wrong happened in some election, you can file a complaint to Election Commission. They can see if the complaint is right. They can check from VVPAT of that particular election, check the number of slips, then check with the EVM. If it is the same, then nothing wrong has happened in that case. Currently, as I said, not all the VVPAT slips are counted. Randomly they are selected just to make sure elections are happening in the right manner. These machines are developed by government companies only, by Electronic Corporation of India Limited and Bharat Electronics Limited. These are the only two companies that are eligible to manufacture this. In fact, opposition members recently asked these companies to tell from where are they sourcing the components, because these machines have small little components in them. So opposition members asked them, from where are you sourcing these components, tell us. But these companies refused to give those details. They said that no, we can't give you exact detail of from where we are sourcing all these components. Next interesting news, the government of India, and this is very recent, initiated a fact check unit under the PIB itself. So PIB, as you know, is a government run portal for all the important news from the government. Under PIB, a fact check unit has been established which will work under the IT rules of 2021. So basically what they will do is, they will check if any news is spreading across the entire country, and if it is false, they will bring it to the notice of the readers that this is false news. They will counter misinformation being spread on government policies, government initiatives mainly. They will try and monitor any disinformation being spread. They will work under the IT rules of 2021. Basically, this unit will categorize news into 3 categories. One, fake news, which will give false information. Second, misleading news that might just give wrong facts. The news may be right, but the facts may be wrong within itself. The third will be true, which is properly fact-checked news. So these are the 3 categories where the news will be segregated. This unit, the fact-check unit, will be headed by the DG or ADG level officer of Indian Information Service, IIS, and the day-to-day operations will be handled by the IIS officers only. This unit will report to the Principal Director General of the PIB. So do remember this part. The last news for this section for Indian polity is the concept of Pandam Lands. Now what exactly is Pandam Land? This is very interesting. As you know, the government of India, ever since our issues with Maldives, has been trying to give a push to Lakshadweep, trying to build more infrastructure in Lakshadweep, trying to attract more tourists there. So what happened was, the residents of Lakshadweep are saying that the government is taking over our land. The government is marking out trees which will need to be cut. Government will take over our land, they will displace us, and they will build hotels, resorts, etc. This is where the concept of Pandam Lands comes into picture. So basically Pandam Lands is a very old concept in Lakshadweep, and it has been going on from 16th, 17th century. The idea is that most of the land of Lakshadweep, about more than 50% of it, is recognized as Pandam Land. Pandam Land is that land on which the government always has the first right. Means this land will always be owned by the government only. Doesn't matter if someone else is living in that land right now, the government will have the right to displace them. This is the concept of the Pandam Lands. The people living in these lands in Lakshadweep don't agree to this. They say no, that it is our land. But the government says that it's the old concept written in laws that Pandam Lands are those lands where government will always have the first right. And these have been recognized under the 1965 law, which is called the Lakshadweep Minicoy Amini Islands Land Revenue and Tenancy Regulation. So again, those lands where government holds a proprietary right prior to this regulation coming into picture, those are called the Pandam Lands. About 60% of total land on Lakshadweep right now is Pandam Lands where the government holds the first ownership. The government is saying that we are not looking to displace people automatically, we are not doing that, but we are just telling you that this is eventually our land only. On the other hand, those lands which can be individually owned in Lakshadweep, they are called the Janman lands. So do remember these two. Janman land means those which can be owned by individuals in Lakshadweep. Pandam lands are those which will always be owned by the government, where the government will always have the first right. It goes back to the other 15th, 16th century where the rulers of the Lakshadweep apparently, who owned all the land, they said that we are transferring some land to people just for cultivation. Let's say for growing coconut trees, etc. But it will eventually remain our land, and that legacy has passed on till today itself. This brings us to the end of today's class. These are all the Indian polity topics. From tomorrow's class at 6 p.m. we'll be discussing international relations topics that were in the news in the last 1 year. Again, do hit the subscribe button if you want the PDF of this lecture. You can join the Telegram channel. Link is given in the description of the video. Thank you so much for joining in, and thank you for being here. All the very best. Jai Hind.